Hey guys, and welcome to or back to the Pause in Pursuit podcast with your host, Summer Clark. So guys, I've just got back from KCI, but it's Tuesday. I got back Sunday night. Yesterday was literally just unpacking. Although saying that, 4 days away at a show felt like pretty much nothing in comparison to EO. So can't really moan that I'm too tired, can I? But I did rack up 80 steps over Thursday to Sunday, so I'd say that's pretty significant. Before we get into the actual topic of this week's episode, which is going to be how your peers affect your agility performance and the influence of those around us in agility on our performance, I'm going to give you all a big KCI debrief. So first of all, I would like to say it was so nice to speak to so many of you over the 4 days of the event. So many of you guys came up to me. Some people took photos of Arrow, which was literally the cutest thing ever. And yeah, it was just great to speak to you guys who came up and we had a chat. So thank you guys for doing that. And yeah, so pretty much KCI this year was all about reinforcing or redoing Arrow's seesaw in prep for AWC. As I said, before I went, that is what I was going to do. And we did just that in all of our agility runs, which I'm very proud of myself for sticking to, because this was pretty mentally tough for me, as KCI literally holds every single qualifier for every single thing ever under the sun. And prioritising seesaw training did take away our chance of champ, stakes, singles and ABC, all within the space of 4 days, which is a very hard pill to swallow as the extremely competitive person that I am. This has been the case for the vast majority of this season, to be fair, but there is certainly no getting away from it at KCI. It is very in your face. It's like, yeah, qualifier. Like pretty much constant reminders that, you didn't qualify for this or that or this or that, or the chance was there, but I chose to reinforce seesaw, hold for 3 seconds on the seesaw, or redo the seesaw if it wasn't perfect and stuff. Which is fine because that's my choice. I didn't have to do that, but I know that it's going to benefit us in the long term. And so I did that. And like I said, I'm super proud of myself for sticking to the plan with the seesaw, and it definitely paid off. The vast improvement in his seesaw over the 4 days of the event was just amazing to see, with 3 out of 3 flawless ones on day 4. He did start off, to be fair, he started off the whole event quite nervous. I think one of our first runs was in the main ring with the tannoy going, and he absolutely did not like that, which is understandable being a sensitive dog, obviously. But I think he just got a little bit freaked from the get-go, and he just didn't seem himself for the first 2-3 days, to be honest. Especially the first 2 days, he was not himself. He didn't really seem himself just around the rings even, or back at the tent even. He's very quiet and subdued and stuff, to the point where me and my mum were like, this isn't really usual for him. Like I said, he is under a physio. He gets seen by a physio regularly. Pace Therapy, shout out. Megan now sponsors us, Megan Hunt from Pace Therapy. So shout out. Can't remember if I announced that on the podcast last week, but yeah, we are now sponsored by Pace Therapy, which is amazing, because as all of you know, I am a very big advocate of taking our agility dogs to physio, and making sure that Arrow stays physically fit and structurally sound for agility and general life, to be honest, is super, super important to me, and getting him seen by a physio every month is a non-negotiable. So super thrilled to be sponsored by Megan at Pace Therapy, but I'm going off on a tangent. Point is, he is seen by a physio regularly. He was seen between EO and KCI, and he was in tip-top condition, so I knew it wasn't anything physical, but yeah, he just seemed spooked, and that showed in his seesaws and his start lines over the first 2-3 days, especially the seesaws. The first day not even flew, just popped off before it hit the floor, so we redid them. The next day he stopped short. I tried giving it a bit more of a yell on the second day and the third day, because the first day just saying it in a normal tone didn't work, and I was like, well, yelling at EO certainly worked, so let me try doing that, and that just made him stop short. And then it took like a good 6 seconds to get him down to the target 2-on 2-off position. So I was like, you know what, last day we're just going to go in, I'm going to say it in my normal tone, we're going to do what we normally do in training and everything. And he did all three of them perfectly, but he just seemed more like himself on that day. You know, around the ring, he was happier, everything. So I think he just took his time to get, you know, used to the environment, because it is a big show and it is a big deal. And I think if you're like me and you've been doing it for many, many years, you kind of just think of it as just another show. But in reality, it is a very big show. It's loud. You know, you've got the tannoy, you've got the fence rings, the white picket fence, which I know confuses a lot of dogs, whether that's just them not quite focusing right, or, you know, I've seen dogs run past weave entries, or last year, Arrow in the British Open final, he could not see the weave entry, and it took like 4 attempts because he just could not see it. And whether that was because the sun was directly, you know, I remember it being like nearly sunset, so it was like right in his eyes, or the white picket fence, who knows. But this year, same thing. I've seen a lot of dogs, you know, make an uncharacteristic mistake near the white picket fencing. So there's lots of things at KCI that are a bit different to a normal show and more for the dogs mentally, to be honest. So I'm guessing, and like I said, he did have 3 weeks of no competing between EO and KCI, because, you know, our dogs need a break physically and mentally. So I've obviously got to give him that. But in the same breath, as I harp on about all the time, Arrow is a dog who needs to be doing it pretty much at least once a week, competing, really, to be at his best. Because he just needs to acclimatise to the environment, basically. And he's still a nervous dog. Yes, I've transformed him into so much better than he was when I first brought him out, but he's still that nervous dog inside. And yeah, I just think the 3 weeks off and then getting plunged back into KCI with the tannoy, literally, one of my runs, I had to set him up literally underneath the tannoy in the corner of the ring, because that's just how the course was set up. Obviously nothing against the judge or the course or anything, it was just how it is. But, you know, normally that wouldn't be a problem. But for Arrow, it was like, yeah, that's right in your ears and literally above his head. And they were commentating that run. So, yeah, it's just, I think, a bigger deal for the dogs than we think. And Arrow had nothing like that for no shows at all for 3 weeks. So he just took a few days to get into the swing of things, but his runs on the last day on Sunday were so good, and 3 out of 3 flawless seesaws. I also came to a bit of a realisation about a start line issue as well. So again, most of you probably know, unless you're new here. If you are, Arrow's start line issue is that he is basically shit scared on the start line. I cannot get him to wait, and he's basically... He just paces around me, like skulks around, he won't stand still. He looks absolutely terrified, his head's down, stuff like that. So I did come to a bit of a realisation over KCI, and that is basically, long story short, that he is still an anxious little dog who overthinks a lot and needs every ring experience to be as stress-free and simple as possible, including on the start line. So for me at the moment, that resulted in me throwing him round the back of the first jump as a start line on the last day of KCI, and it's actually insane how much more confident he was in general. In that run, outside of the run, in the queue, his seesaws were all perfect. I think that was just stressing him out so much that it was having a huge knock-on effect on everything else, including the rest of the run, if that makes sense. So that's a kind of realisation I came to. Obviously, I can't do the throw-around starts at GB stuff, FCI stuff like that. It's against the rules. However, after talking to quite a few people at KCI who've had similar before, and that know Arrow and stuff, the plan is to do the throw-around starts when I can for a little while, and then every now and again just throw in a random weight, because he's preempting this scary weight on the start line. He's so clever, he knows it's coming and he hates it. For whatever reason, it just overwhelms him. And not only him, but then me, and we're both going into the run stressing out. Like, in the queue, I'm not even nervous about the agility run. I'm nervous about the start line because I just hate it. I hate the experience of spending like 2 minutes on the start line with a dog that's clearly terrified and not knowing what to do about it. So I just thought, you know what, remove that completely and just go in there, chuck him around the back, get straight into it and just enjoy the run. And it was like a completely different experience. It was proper good. So that's what we're doing for now. And then every now and again, after doing that for a while, I'm going to ask for a random weight. And hopefully, because he hasn't been doing weights, you know, constantly, it'll kind of catch him a bit off guard and he won't be overthinking it. if that makes sense. So that's the next thing we're going to try, because like I said, the first few days of KCI's weights were worse than they've ever been. So training them in the ring, I don't think is what we need to do. Seesaws, definitely train in the ring because it is working. But I think start lines, we just need to, have a different approach. And that's what I'm going to do from now on. So there's a little bit of a seesaw kind of start line training update as well. All good with the seesaw, start line, different approach. But yeah, seesaw's definitely getting better with the training in the ring that I'm doing. Even though I was disappointed not to qualify for things, you got to do what you got to do. It's teaching me to be more resilient. And like I said, despite the atmosphere and Tannoy getting to him at the start of the show like it did, I couldn't be happier with how confidently he ended the show. It's always nice to end a show on a positive note, and even though results weren't the aim of this show for me, as we know it was all about seesaw training, we did achieve some pretty cool results anyway, including 2nd out of 200 dogs in the Cruff singles jumping, 1st in grade 7 jumping, another 1st in grade 7 jumping, 1st in YKC Agility Dog of the Year jumping, 1st and qualifying for Cruffs in YKC pairs with Jamie and Dexter. This is the only pairs qualifier me and Jamie do, and we qualified here at KCI last year, and we've done it again this year, so that's very cool. 1st in grade 7 agility, the seesaw was taken out, by the way. So it felt like a jumping, it was great. 2nd in grade 7 agility with a seesaw hold and bear in mind I was holding for like 3-4 seconds, and then a 6th in grade 7 agility also with a seesaw hold. So actually quite a bit of consistency there across his runs. And yeah, he frustrates the hell out of me sometimes, and that is an understatement, but I couldn't love my clever, complex little spaniel anymore if I tried. He is, honestly, talking to people, like, thank you to everyone I spoke to. I did have some tears. I did have some, mentee bees, mental breakdowns, but I'm very open about that. I am a very emotional person in all aspects of life, including competition, and I'm very competitive as well. So I'm very much open about just bawling my eyes out when I need to. But apart from those times, trying to keep the vibes nice and high for Arrow. And like I said, every experience within agility just needs to be fun for him, and that is the most important thing. But yeah, everyone I spoke to, I do, and there's some people, and this kind of ties into the, topic of the episode. There's some people in agility that just aren't very pleasant, or, give off bad vibes, or say unpleasant comments, not to name names, obviously, but that is just life, isn't it? Like, you get people like that. But this weekend, again, has just made me realise how many people in the agility community are just so amazing and so lovely. And yeah, just spoke to so many lovely, lovely people, and we discussed, the issues I'm having, the issues they're having, tried to help each other out, stuff like that. And it was just great vibes, basically. And yeah, these people reminded me that he is making me a better trainer, and that is what I want to do for the rest of my life, is be an agility trainer. So you know what? He's helping me out there. Can't complain. So that is the KCI debrief. What else? I haven't been up to anything else, because literally last Wednesday was a podcast episode and we went to KCI. So yeah, that is the weekly update, the KCI debrief. So now I've got that out of the way. Let's move on to the actual episode then, shall we? So just a reminder, the influence of others is what I'm going to be talking about today, and all about how our peers affect our performance in agility, because they really, really, really do. And it's something I've had to deal with and I'm learning more about. And as you guys also probably know, I'm quite into my psychology as well, my human psychology, sports psychology, stuff like that. So this topic is very interesting to me. Done a bit of extra research as well, so I'm going to basically share my insight and some of the studies that I've read up on about the topic of how basically our peers affect us in sport, particularly competitive sports. So yeah, basically to sum it up, our peers can and do significantly influence our sporting performance in multiple ways. Okay, so positive peer dynamics, when you're surrounded by people that make you feel good, that lift you up, that are supportive within sport, boosts our motivation, increases our confidence, enhances our skill acquisition. So, how well and quickly we can pick up new skills and learn things, and also fosters a sense of belonging. So giving us that community feeling, which is really important when you belong to a sport, belong to the agility community. It's really important for, our longevity within the sport and how we perform, that we feel a part of things. That's just a very human desire that we have anyways, to be part of, a group or a tribe. That goes way back years, doesn't it? But that is very important, even though it seems like it might not be. It really is. On the other hand then, negative peer dynamics can lead to awful things, basically, such as decreased motivation, so you no longer want to participate in your sport, anxiety around your sport and worrying about performing instead of just enjoying what started off as a hobby, withdrawal, so just isolating yourself from everyone else within the sport, and low self-esteem, which, like I said, if you go into a run without any confidence whatsoever and you feel bad about yourself and your ability and your dog skills, you're not going to have a good run. So yeah, basically negative peer dynamics can literally make or break, just peer dynamics, whether they're positive or negative, can make or break a run and just our agility performance in general, across a show. Potentially, if one person's there giving you either a good time or a hard time socially, that can really change the outcome of that show for you. Like I said, it can just be one run, or it can just be the sport in general. And that's where it becomes an issue when you have it persistently, and you find it difficult to escape. So we'll start off discussing the positive impact of our peers then, of healthy peer dynamics within a sport. So first of all is motivation and engagement. So our peers can create a positive and supportive environment if you surround yourself with the right ones, fostering a sense of belonging to a community and encouraging participation. So if you've got a positive peer dynamic, this makes us want to stay in the sport, participate in the sport more and frequently, and keep coming back to it, okay? The presence of friends within a sport can increase enjoyment of and the likelihood of continuing the sport. Again, it's that longevity of your sporting career. And that is according to research published by the National Institute of Health. So that is an actual study that's been carried out, and that is scientifically the case, which is crazy that, our peers and their behaviour can literally make or break whether we even stay in a sport. I think this is quite big as well to, for children or young people who kind of start off in a sport, whether that's because their parents did it or they do it through school, and then have to make that not even split-second crucial decision of whether they carry on, but a lot, there's kind of a point or an age where they're like, am I going to carry this on and see it through and, just keep going throughout my life, which is obviously like people like me, or am I going to stop and go off on a different path, which is, both options are obviously fine, but little do we know, I think, in general, that our peers can actually really impact that decision. If you have a great friend group within the sport, you're probably more likely to carry it on, maybe turn it into a career, pursue it further. Whereas if you've got negativity socially within a sport, that's really going to help you make the decision to just get out and do something else. Okay, so again, not really necessarily a good or a bad thing, because, it's not like we all have to stay in the same sport forever, but it's just an interesting factor to think, this can actually make a difference. So the next thing then is skill development. So our peers can serve as role models if we have the right ones, demonstrating skills and techniques and providing valuable feedback. So we can, see a peer who is kind and supportive to us, do really well in the sport we're in, and demonstrate the skills and techniques within the sport that we want, and we can see them as a role model and, strive to be like them, follow in their footsteps, maybe they're more experienced, stuff like that. And then they can also provide valuable feedback to us. Again, we'll come on to this later, but that's that constructive versus critical feedback. So constructive criticism versus unhelpful, criticism. So this can be particularly important for less skilled athletes, or not even less skilled, just newer to sports people, who can then learn from their more experienced peers. So not saying, this is important if you aren't very skilled at agility. This is saying if you're newer to, or you're not at a certain level yet, if you've got these positive peers around you, you can learn from them when they're more experienced, which is super, super important. We all need role models and people to learn from and aspire to be like. So, also social support and belonging. Super important. Friends and teammates provide social support, which can buffer against stress and anxiety and promote a sense of belonging within the sporting environment. So, like I said, often a sporting environment, especially a competitive one, it's a breeding ground for stress and anxiety. So having a group of friends or teammates that are on your side, you don't get that super competitive edge. You don't feel like you're a threat to them or vice versa. That's really important. They're rooting for you, you're rooting for them. It's not like you're willing each other to fail because you want to win, stuff like that, which is really toxic. But having positive dynamics within friends and teammates in a sport really does help to reduce that stress and anxiety. And yeah, like I said, you just feel like you are part of something, which is really, really good for our mental health in general. Finally then, motivational climate. So I found this interesting. A peer-created motivational climate, so essentially how motivated we are within a sport dependent upon the peers around us. Focusing on effort and improvement can positively influence motivation and persistence in sports. Let me say that again because I broke that up. A peer-created motivational climate focusing on effort and improvement can positively influence motivation and persistence in sport. Okay, and this is according to a study published by Science Direct. So again, this is all backed by science. Research has been done on it. It is not just opinion or experience from me or people. It is scientifically proven, which I find really, really super fascinating. But yeah, basically, if you create a environment of positivity and motivation by surrounding yourself with positive people and, peers that influence you in a good way, and, you can all focus on putting in effort and improving together, then this really helps your motivation and persistence in your sport. You're much less likely to quit, which is cool. So now on to the negative side of it then. So negative peer dynamics do have big impacts on us, just on mental health in general and also on our performance in sports. So first of all, you've got the obvious, pressure and anxiety. So like I said earlier, sport and competition is a natural breeding ground for this anyway, without peers, just in and of itself, if that makes sense. So negatively then, our peers can create pressure to conform to certain behaviours or standards. So they may impose a standard, on you, or, make you feel like you're not living up to a certain standard within a sport, not performing well enough. In agility, that might be not getting enough clear rounds. It could be not winning a certain class or qualifying for a certain thing. And then certain behaviours, there may be pressure to do a certain thing with your dog, whether that's what kind of start line you do or how what you do when your dog does this in a ring, if and how you train your dog in a ring, or just how you train your dog in general, like out of competition, just in the sport in general, like methods of training, how you approach an issue you've got with your dog, all these things when you're talking to people. And this can lead to anxiety and you thinking that you're doing the wrong thing, or, thinking, why am I not doing this? Why am I not living up to their standards and doing the same things as them? Not doing things the same way as they are. And then obviously then it results in decreased performance, especially when you're under pressure. So training, just general dog training, this applies to. But then add the sprinkle of competition and when you're under pressure, and this makes it even worse. Okay, so there's levels to it. Then you've got negative feedback and criticism. So as we know, constructive feedback and constructive criticism is very important and we can all benefit from it. But excessive or negative criticism from peers can damage our self-esteem and motivation to improve and continue and try and get better. And like I said, I've said this before, I'll say it again. If you go into agility with low self-esteem and no confidence, you're going to struggle a lot more than if you go in believing in yourself, okay? So then you've got this is probably a more extreme side of it and less likely to happen, but I'm sure it still happens. I know it still happens in agility, even though agility is maybe a niche, smaller circle in general, as opposed to some of the other sports that, studies are referring to and stuff. But this happens in all walks of life, and that is social exclusion and bullying, because it's just humans, isn't it? So social exclusion and bullying can have a very detrimental impact on our general mental health and well-being, leading to decreased participation in our sport and our performance in it, which is obvious. I feel like full stop, that doesn't really need much more saying on it. But if people are excluding you socially within a sport and, you feel alone, you feel excluded, maybe you're not sure why, we just don't want to even turn up to that situation. We don't even want to put ourselves in that environment. So, we're likely to participate less in the sport and, really distance ourselves from that environment and community. And obviously when we're feeling like that, we're also not going to perform very well. So lastly then, competitive behaviours, again, quite obvious. So excessive, and obviously competition is healthy to some extent. I'm very competitive, for example, and I think being competitive does fuel us to improve. It gives us the motivation to strive for more, have bigger goals, never be happy, never be too content, never get too comfortable, keep going for more greatness. So there's that good side of it. But then excessive competition, again, everything in moderation, too much excessive competition amongst peers can create a negative and stressful environment, undermining teamwork and collaboration. Okay, so, you don't want to feel like you're in huge competition with every single one of your peers just because you all do the same sport, okay? So in agility, this may be more prevalent when you're in the same height and grade as a peer or a group of peers, because you are literally competing against each other. But, the people you want to be surrounding yourself with are the people that can be supportive towards you while competing against you, okay? And not saying negative comments. Some people try and get into your head because they think it'll affect your performance, so they do better, stuff like that, okay? Excessive competition does create a stressful environment and it does not feel good. And it, you've got to strive for teamwork, like, for example, Team GB. We're all on Team GB. We've got that teamwork. We're all on the same team. Technically, though, we're still competing against each other in the individual event. But we're all on the same team, so we all have to support each other, okay? Teamwork makes the dream work, as they say. And collaboration, we're all part of one unit, okay? And that should be the case. I know Team GB is quite an excessive example, but even just between a group of friends within agility, if that makes sense. It's the same principle. So those are pretty much the main points of the episode, but I'm now going to give you some tips, some top tips, some advice. So just some things to bear in mind: how to foster positive peer dynamics. So these are things that you can try and do and control to make the peer dynamics in your life better within agility. So first of all, and this is very obvious, but surround yourself with people who lift you up and make you feel good about yourself and your abilities. And again, there's a difference between fake support and real support. And don't you, when people are really, really supportive, they're encouraging, they lift you up. They're not scared to give you that constructive criticism, but in general, they make you feel good and positive, even when it's going wrong. They give you a positive and then they, help you try and look to improvement, look to the future, look to next time, stuff like that. And, they just make you feel good and confident. Also, know the difference between, like I said, unhelpful and constructive criticism, and actively encourage the constructive type. So accept constructive criticism with open arms, but don't mistake the two for each other and just take like nasty comments and unhelpful criticism, basically, because you think it might be constructive. You can tell the difference between constructive criticism and just someone being unpleasant, basically. But yeah, actively encourage the constructive type because it will help you. Don't shy away from that. But also know the difference and know when it's unhelpful and you need to either stand up for yourself or walk away. And lastly, strive to have a positive impact on your peers and act as a role model for those around you. So if you can be imagine the kind of peer that you want and would help you within the sport. Try and be that person for others, and that really rubs off on them. So if they see and feel you being that kind of person to them, it should hopefully inspire them to do the same to you and others as well. Okay? And like I said, we're only in control of what we do. We're not in control of what those around us do or how they behave. So all you can do is be that person yourself and, inspire others to do the same. Hopefully. I mean, some people, there's no changing, but we can only do what we can do, can't we? So now then, how to reduce the impact of negative peer dynamics, because they are going to happen, they are going to be there, but you can control the situation as best you can. So reduce or eliminate the time that you spend around people who put you down or make you feel poorly about yourself and your abilities. So we all have these people in our lives, whether that's in sports or just in life, in work, in anything, in school. And all we can do is basically just try and spend as little time with them as possible. Don't seek them out, be polite and friendly, especially if you see them all the time and you're in the same sport, you're in the same environment, you're going to see them. So be polite. But, and two wrongs make a right. They can be unpleasant to you, but it doesn't mean you have to be like that back. In fact, don't be. But yeah, you can reduce the time you spend with those people. You have complete control over who you choose to talk to and spend your time with. Another thing that I've been trying out lately, which has actually really helped, and I've only done it over the 4 days of KCI so far, but it's wearing headphones during course walking to reduce the likelihood of hearing negative, anxiety-inducing comments that will set you up for a run that lacks the necessary confidence. So and it wasn't even things necessarily directed at me. I mean, I have had that before, but, wearing headphones, I think you hear people slagging off the course, slagging off the judge, saying, oh, this is going to be loads of dogs are going to go in this trap and stuff like that. And maybe you're thinking, I like hearing those comments because I can look out for things that may go wrong. But for me, where I am at this point right now, I can figure those things out for myself during course walking. And every dog is different anyway, so only I know what is likely to catch arrow out, how best I can handle arrow on that particular course and stuff like that. So I found that wearing headphones, playing some music that's either, whatever music you want to listen to, or just having your headphones on with nothing, just to block the sound out. A lot of headphones have noise cancelling while you're walking, so you can really focus, and you're not going to hear those negative comments that just set you up for a bad run when you've walked it, basically. So that's really helped me. I would definitely give it a go. Like I said, some people aren't bothered. Even to the point of not even avoiding hearing negative comments. But, some people can come and try and talk to you during course walking with the best of intentions or something nice to say. But, I need to concentrate. And I've done that before. Talked to someone around the course walking for the whole 15 minutes and then been I haven't taken any of that in. So it just helps with focus, I think. And it's not personal to anyone. It's just, it helps you focus more, I think. So give that one a go. Know the difference, again, between unhelpful and constructive criticism, and do not stand for the unhelpful or unpleasant type. Recognise it and do not stand for it. And do not be afraid to either stand up for yourself. So just say, that's not very nice. I don't appreciate that. That's not very supportive. Or, do you realise how that's coming across? That hurts, basically. Or just walk away in negative situations. So either stand up for yourself and say something calmly, politely, but make it known, or walk away. Just take yourself out of the situation, whatever you're comfortable with, as long as you are not keeping yourself in a position where you're essentially either being put down or feeling bad, basically. And then finally, vocalise your experiences and confide in someone you trust. So, if you've got some social dynamic going on that's affecting you negatively, find someone that you trust and confide in them. Tell them what's going on. We've all got people that we get on with and people who we don't. So talk to the people that we get on with that, are supportive and stuff, and tell them what's going on. Don't just keep it to yourself. It's very valid to be bothered by comments by people, even if you don't, because we can all go, oh, they probably didn't mean it, that's just them. No, but if it's affecting you, it is very valid. So talk to people, That's, like I said at the start, talk to those people that do have a positive impact on you, and yeah, those positive people. So that is the episode of today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful. I found that really interesting to look further into. Like I said, I'm a big one on psychology. I do enjoy psychology. So yeah, if you have any more questions, please do send me a DM, reach out, and I can answer any more questions, or if you just want to have a conversation about this topic, I would love to talk to you guys individually if you've got anything to say. What am I up to in the next week? So I'm currently setting up something very, very exciting, which will be announced very, very soon. So all I'm saying is get the hell ready for something big, something that's been a long time coming and I'm very excited about. Keep that in the back of your mind. Also, I'm getting a tattoo tomorrow. Again, will be revealed on my social media. Won't give it away yet, but I absolutely love it. That's happening tomorrow. Oh, voice break, lol. I haven't had one of those in a while, actually. Puberty has returned to me. And then Welsh KC, my first ever time competing at Welsh KC, Saturday, Sunday. So going to Wales on Friday and then staying in a hotel, having a nice little weekend away in Wales with some competing thrown in there. You know how it is. With our throw round starts, going to be a good time. Correcting and reinforcing seesaws. So no big hopes for champ, but you know, we've got to get Arrow and myself into these high pressure environments, doing our seesaws, you know, just building confidence. That's what it's about. And yeah, that is what I'm up to. But without further ado, it's outro time. You guys all know the drill by now. Please do keep sending me your podcast episode recommendations. What would you like me to talk about in solo episodes? And also, tell me the guest that you'd like on. I know last week I had Katerina on, and we spoke all about running contacts, which was an amazing conversation. So if you haven't already listened to that, please do go give that a listen. It's a nice 2-hour long episode, so it'll keep you going for a good long while. But yeah, let me know who else you would like me to get as a guest on the podcast in the future and what topics you would like me to speak about with them if you have that in your mind as well. And make sure you're following the podcast so you don't miss any of those future episodes coming. I have another very special guest coming on very soon, but yeah, I'll keep that under wraps for now. But just know you will enjoy it, and this person is very, very cool, and you're going to learn a lot, and it's going to be very interesting. If you enjoyed today's episode, or if you are a regular listener to the podcast and like the episodes in general, or if you're new here and you're only just tuning in, make sure you give the podcast a follow so that I just said that. I meant to say, God's sake, make sure to give the podcast a 5-star rating or review if you're new and like today's episode, or if you're a long-time listener and just love the pod in general. I would really appreciate a 5-star rating and review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you stream your podcast. That would mean the absolute world to me. And lastly, please do follow me, if you're not already, on social media at Pause in Pursuit or Summer Clark. Pause in Pursuit on pretty much everything, especially Instagram and TikTok. I am loving my TikTok videos at the moment. As you guys know, it is my jam. But yeah, on stories on Instagram every single day if you want to keep up with my life and what me and Arrow are getting up to. But that is it for this week, guys. So without further ado, I'll let you get on with your Wednesday, and I might see some of you at Welsh KC, but if not, I will talk to you on the pod next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Bye, guys.